Welcome to Don't Skip the Legal, and welcome back to the second part of our insightful conversation with Paresa Noble from Nobler Media. In this continuation, we're diving deeper into the intriguing realm of AI and its legal implications in the world of marketing. Our discussion takes a focused lens on the legal complexities surrounding the integration of artificial intelligence into content creation and marketing strategies. Paresa sheds light on how Nobler Media utilizes AI to innovate content creation while navigating the legal landscape to ensure ethical and compliant practices. Join us as we unravel the intricacies of AI-driven marketing, exploring the boundaries, ethical considerations, and legal responsibilities in harnessing this cutting-edge technology. This episode promises an enriching exploration into the intersection of innovation and legality, providing valuable insights for businesses venturing into the realm of AI-powered content creation. Don't miss this engaging episode as we delve into the legal considerations and ethical nuances of leveraging AI in marketing. Get ready for a compelling discussion that illuminates the path forward in the ever-evolving landscape of digital marketing and AI integration. Stay tuned for the eye-opening continuation of our conversation with Paresa Noble on the legal implications of AI in marketing. And now, part 2. I'm Andy Contaglia, your corporate casual Denver-based business attorney, bringing you the Don't Skip the Legal podcast, where you can listen in on the real stories, the real stakes, and the real legal lessons from real business owners just like you. These behind-the-door conversations about business are instrumental to your success. This is where the deals are made, negotiations are discussed, and company problems are identified, leading you to overcoming the challenges we all face in our business. This podcast is your invitation to where the real business happens, and also where the best ideas take place. So let's get behind the doors in business and break down these legal lessons. And overall, remember, don't skip the legal.
What's been fun watching you do over time is, the way that marketing in general and social media and content creation has changed. I mean, it is different today than it was 5 years ago from when you started.
Yeah.
Now we have sort of the introduction of artificial intelligence. And you reached out to me, this is about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, you reached out to me and you go, hey, what's this deal with AI and can I use it in our content creation? Do you remember that discussion?
Oh, of course, yeah.
All right, so what were some of the things that we brought up relative to that? What are some of these ideas that, I mean, I think it's a minefield, but I think it can be navigated well if we do this right. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
So what's your concern in that space?
There's a few. So I think the biggest thing, when I reached out, it was kind of, and the question I think a lot of people have is, where is the line of, having AI help you in content creation and then having AI create the content for you? So it's, when we look at books, for example, there are many AI platforms that are looking at ways to have it write an entire manuscript for you. I think ChatGPT is not fully there yet, but it can write, a few tens of thousands of words, but it's not fully there yet.
It's pretty thorough, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's not quite there yet.
So, but when you look at that, it's like, that's great and all, but all of that is public domain. And I think our conversation was a lot of, if you use AI to write something, you cannot legally copyright it.
Correct.
And it cannot be something that is technically IP or proprietary because it's made through a robot.
It's made through a robot. And the copyright laws require that it must be created by a human.
Yes.
There was a case a few years back. It was, I don't know if you remember this, there was the gorilla selfie. Mm-hmm. And there was, a gorilla picked up somebody's camera and took a selfie picture of it, and somebody tried to get that picture copyrighted on behalf of the gorilla, basically, and the copyright office was like, no, you can't, because it's not human created. It's not put into a tangible form by a person. And that's the issue really with AI right now, which is computers are generating all of this stuff. And as a result of that, the Copyright Office, now when you copyright something, the Copyright Office will ask you, was any part of this item created through the use of artificial intelligence? And if you click yes, it's like almost an automatic, all right, it's not copyrightable. And so what ends up happening here, lawyers like myself and some of my really close friends who specialize in intellectual property are now bringing these lawsuits against the Copyright Office, or at least bringing up challenges to the decision not to copyright something, to say, yes, but think of the way that we have to put in the prompts. we don't get this answer unless you have some form of human intervention and human interaction to create it. It's like I pick the color palette, or I ask the right questions to get to the answer that I am looking for, or to get the image that I'm looking for. There have been, I think, some cases where they've said, okay, if you can prove what interaction you've done, in other words, following your process from the idea to the prompts to everything that you did to fine-tune and hone that image, they might give you a copyright on that, because there is sufficient interaction of a human in the creation of the item, even though the computer is generating the image at the end of the day. That is still out there. I'm not quite sure the Copyright Office is going, and there's not enough case law out there to really push that and say, yes, that's appropriate. So that's still in development from a legal standpoint. But what you're finding is people, and this, a buddy of mine in Florida is just like, yeah, what we're finding with our clients down there is just like, we'll create this stuff and nobody gives a shit anymore if it gets copyrighted.
Yeah.
That's really the thing. Like, I wrote a book, I used AI part of it, and I'm like, I'm not even going to try to get this copyrighted. I don't want to go through the hassle of describing everything that I did, but I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if it gets copyrighted, and I mean, you lose some of those protections, but for generating content and things like that, it's quick, it's easy, it's boom, there you go. Yeah. So how are you integrating it into your work?
Yeah, good question. Well, so for us, it's been a lot of, we don't use it to write the book. We use it more so to help us create an outline that we then go back and, optimize to fit the author's ideas. And from that, we help take that outline and put it back in to create a chapter summary to get approval from the author of like, okay, we're going to really dig into this outline, but before we do, here's what your book is probably going to be about. Here's how the concepts will flow. So that's probably the biggest use case on the book side. And then once we do that, then we do everything human, because I feel like that's part of the white glove side of it.
Yeah, it's important.
It's important. And there's a lot of ethical pieces too that we talked about when we had that conversation. It's like, if we're saying we are ghostwriting a book for a client, it either needs to be fully disclosed that there is any segment of this that's using AI to be written, or you don't use it at all. So that's exactly how we operate. If there's ever a section where we need to create a book description or something, that's something where we say, okay, are you aligned with us using AI on this to create the summary? If not, we can have our team write it. But yeah, it's been an interesting piece. And then from that also, it helps us with a lot of social media captions too.
One of the issues that you and I talked about when you were first looking at utilizing AI in the marketing space, I think everybody agrees. You need to use artificial intelligence as sort of a guide to get you, create the outline and you do the heavy lifting on it. You certainly could ask it to do everything for you. Mm-hmm. But one issue you and I talked about is, well, how do we disclose that to our customers? Because if I'm hiring you to do something for me, and I'm expecting that it's going to get the Paresa Noble white glove service that I am hiring you for, and the next thing I know, all you're doing is copying a speech that Michelle Obama gave and trying to pass it off as your own. That's based on a true story, by the way.
Oh no!
Look it up.
Did that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I think it was Melania Trump. She did a thing in there. It was identical to, I don't know, or maybe it was the other way around. Anyway, but that now I'm like, wait a minute, that is not original. I paid for something original. I paid for what is in your brain, and you're not giving me what's in your brain. You're giving me what's from a computer. Yeah. But there are times that you're going to utilize it. So how are you bringing that, or at least approaching that issue and that topic with your customers?
Mm-hmm. Full transparency. That's how. I mean, it's either we don't do it, and if we do it, we tell them and get their written alignment on it, and then we'll move forward with what they agree on. So I think that's the biggest thing is like we're not even moving into an era of AI. We are in it. I think this all started in 2020, 2021. So we're in it. And I think it's really, I was just at a mastermind, 4 Rooms mastermind last week, and we heard Sam Woods. He's an AI expert talking about it, but it's really the next 12 to 18 months where entrepreneurs, anybody who's in marketing, legal, any of the white collar positions, right? Because that's what a lot of chat is doing. It's marketing, it's legal, it's even software engineering. So everyone in this realm, we have the next year to 18 months to integrate it fully into our work, before it just is completely mainstream. So I think, I honestly lost my train of thought on how I tell this to people.
You were talking about Sam Woods.
Oh yeah, well, Sam, that was one of the things that Sam was talking about. It's like, how are we going to integrate this? And when it comes to, integrating it into our own processes, we've started dabbling, and it is primarily with the outlines. What used to take probably 10 hours of work now takes 20 minutes, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And it just makes us more productive. It makes us, it broadens our reach and able to do more for our clients. So we're doing it in a very intentional way. There's so many ways that we could incorporate it, especially as a content creation agency, but we want to kind of maintain the human aspect of things, because there's a few things that AI can't do. AI doesn't, there was a handful of things we were talking about on the human side that all of us need to kind of practice and pour into as AI grows. And it's working on our own judgment, working on decision making, sharpening our own perspective and how we, how our point of view mirrors that of everybody else. Because at the end of the day, if every single lawyer in the world is going to use ChatGPT to create content, you're all going to start sounding the same. So it's essentially...
We are all the same.
Oh, well then in that case, use it. No, but it is. It's in this world, so many people are creating content that it's a very saturated landscape. So when you aren't able to really capture the taste of somebody or the point of view of somebody and capture their angle, then you're just going to get lost in the noise of everybody else that's creating content. So for us, it's a matter of using AI as a tool to expedite our processes and automate things that make sense. But there's something to be said about that human to human connection that, I learn about Andy. I know you. I'm sitting here looking at you in the eyes right now. I could create content for you because I know you. Whereas, it's really at the core, it's pattern recognition, what we're working with on ChatGPT or any other platform. So it's going to kind of see how you talk to it. And that's really all it has to feed off of for who you are. So your voice can get lost in it too. And when we're in the world of content creation and ghostwriting, holding on to somebody's voice is so important,
I do.
Let's take a moment to acknowledge the importance of legal knowledge in the business world. Legal issues can be a minefield, but they don't have to be. That's why I am thrilled to introduce you to a resource that will be your guiding light through these challenges. Get ready to discover the ultimate legal companion for entrepreneurs. I am excited to introduce you to Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, your ultimate companion for conquering the legal challenges of entrepreneurship. It is authored by me, Andy Contaguglia, a seasoned business lawyer based here in Denver, Colorado. This book is your roadmap to navigating the legal landscape with confidence. Inside, you'll find valuable insights on choosing the right business entity, understanding fiduciary duties, tackling financing options, hiring employees, and even nailing down the perfect business name and location. But that's not all. You can get your hands on this essential guide in both Kindle and paperback form, making it super convenient for you. If you're ready to empower your business with knowledge, head over to Amazon, head over to Kindle, and grab your copy of Don't Skip the Legal today. For more details and updates, visit don'tskipthelegal.com, and don't let the legal hold you back in succeeding in business. With Don't Skip the Legal, the startup guide for entrepreneurs and business owners, you can take your business to new heights. Available on Amazon and Kindle. Now let's get back to the pod.
And I find that sort of myself. I've tried to sort of hack ChatGPT in some form or fashion over, the last few months, just to experiment with it and see what's going on. So I would pull like a brief I wrote years ago before ChatGPT, which I thought was a really good thing, and I would load it into ChatGPT and I would say, hey, here's a sample of my writing style. Analyze it and put it in, and it analyzes it. You are a professional. It's very legal, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, remember this. And now let's write something unique using that same writing style. And it sort of remembers it and it puts something out. It's been okay. But much like you, it's good for creating those outlines and creating those bullet points. I mean, there were some lawyers who used ChatGPT to write a brief that they submitted to the court. And ChatGPT, I mean, it looked great, it sounded great, it cited everything properly, but when you looked into the cases that it pulled to cite to, like, everything was made up.
Yeah.
It was like not real. And these lawyers got sanctioned, and it was just like, oh, you mean ChatGPT isn't real? Oh my God.
Right.
And so it's, but I have found it useful to take things like, we work on written opinions or we work on statutes, and you can load that in and ask for a summary, and it does really good, I think, on summarizing things and picking things out and, and saying like, hey, what would be a good argument against this proposition or for this proposition, and here's some facts, and you can get some good analysis out of it, and it gets your brain started. I think that's a really good use for it. I'm writing a fiction book, and I kind of like hit this point with one of my characters. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do with this guy? I literally went to ChatGPT and I said, let me tell you about this character. What would this character do, or what would be the motivation behind A, B, C? And it's like if you and I were to sit down and say, let me tell you about this person, and you and I started having a dialogue about it. And I think like the AI is really good for that, because I started literally having a conversation with AI. It was like, well, tell me about this. What this character's motivations and all of these different things. I'm putting it in. And it gave me some great ideas. I'm like, I like this idea. I think this is going to work. This could be great. I mean, it would have been more fun sitting down with somebody and brainstorming it, but it's the exact same kind of thing, and it helps you get that creative process going.
Well, see, and what you just said is so profound, and I think this is what we need to hold on to as AI accelerates, is you are essentially the puppet master of what chat is giving you, and then you are deciding which ideas you're going to run with. I think there's going to be two types of people as AI becomes more and more mainstream. It's the people who just take what AI gives you and that's what they run with, or they use what AI gives them as inspiration to create their own ideas.
Yes.
And I think we should all work and strive to be on the second half of that.
Use it as brain food.
Yes, use it as brain food.
Not as the meal.
Yeah, well, and there's so many other things. I mean, ChatGPT is just scratching the surface. I mean, there's, especially in the marketing world, there are platforms now where you can ditch split testing. For those of you that don't know, it's like you create two ads and then you split test it. You see which one works better. There are platforms now where you can ditch split testing and it will tell you with up to 97% accuracy, I think it was, if it will be a productive ad. So you don't have to go waste thousands of dollars split testing two different ads.
See, now that I haven't run into yet. I know it's out there, but I'm real curious how that, I might want to pick your brain after we're done here. Talk about that a little bit more. Yeah. That's fascinating. What other legal issues have you sort of come up against within your organization, whether it's among the people you work with, whether it's your customers, things that you're copywriting for people? I mean, I can think of a million things off my head in terms of what the content creation space and marketing does, but I think it's important that you sort of express what you've gone through and what you think people can navigate or make sure they don't fall into any traps along the way.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's, I think there's a lot behind social proof, and I think, that is something that can be a little spicy sometimes, given you don't want to share client information, but you want to share their experience with you. So I think that's something that many should incorporate into their content, especially if you're doing for your brand, like your company's social media. Incorporate the testimonials, incorporate that social proof, but be mindful of, the things you're confined to as far as sharing their name, sharing, too many details about them where people can decipher who it might be. There's a lot of client privacy that I'm sure you've run into.
Absolutely. And one issue that I've always come up with in the marketing space with people is there's a couple. Number one is, if you create something for me, All right. At the end of the day, who owns it? Now, I've seen marketers there are two different approaches. At the end of the day, you own it, and I get to license it. I see that a lot with photographers, and I'm totally against that, unless I'm representing photographers. And same kind of thing with the people who are creating the content, which is, I'm against you owning my content, unless, of course, I'm representing you. Then I want you to own everybody else's content. But for me, I know that when I go out and I hire you to write something, and I think when you had me sign your contract, I changed it. And I said, this is great. I love your contract, but at the end of the day, I'm going to own it, but I'll let you, give yourself accolades or be using it for your own marketing perspective. And I think people forget that piece of it. But for you, from the marketing perspective, I would tell you, be selfish and try to maintain proprietary interest in all of that which you create. Now, it's different with ghostwriting and things like that, because I think you are creating it for someone else. So it's the true work for hire scenario. But different little pieces of content here and there, maybe not. So what are you doing in that space? What are you doing to protect yourself in that area?
We have it very clearly written out, and we have an approval process where we don't own anything after it's handed to the client. Everything we make is for the client. Social media posts, emails.
All work for hire. Everything.
Everything is work for hire.
Okay, I think that's great.
Yeah, because, at the end of the day, if I'm creating content for, another law firm, I don't know. We don't need that content, and we're not going to reuse it for other clients. I mean, that is specifically for them.
And that's sort of the other thing. It's like there's some people who really want to kind of hoard this items that they make for other people. But I'm like, well, why do you need the script you wrote for me on the Digital Millennium Copyright Act? Why do you need that?
Yeah. No, honestly, you probably got a templated contract from me. That was at the very beginning of my venture. So I was using template contracts, which you advised me to not, which I appreciate. So that's no longer in our contract.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, because I think it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with that script? I have no value in that. You have value in that. So I'm going to give it to you.
Unless you get other lawyers who are your clients, and then you could repurpose it with them. Then I start looking, I'm like, I've heard that somewhere before. I don't think that's...
But then they might as well use ChatGPT.
They could. And you may as well get everything wrong.
We can all sound the same.
Well, there's also... So you pass everything on to your customer. I think that's great. And, they own it. They can do whatever they want with it. They can go get it copyrighted, assume it's not AI generated. But that leads to sort of another issue, which is, how do you protect yourself when they screw up?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people come to you and they say, let's just use a ghostwriting example. They tell you the story, you take your notes, somebody drafts something, but in that story, your client is bad-mouthing somebody or says some horrible things or remembers an event a little bit differently than maybe it really happened. And you run into sort of this libel situation where somebody could come after them for a book that was, that's defamatory in nature. How are you protecting yourself in that respect?
Yeah, there's a couple things. First, it's, we have some red tape around our own processes where we're not going to badmouth people, regardless of if they want us to or not. I mean, if, there hasn't been a situation where we've had a client do that. There's also some red tape around, obviously, citing sources, not using quotations in books just to be safe. So there's things that we're doing on our end to protect ourselves. And then also in our contracts, we have it very clearly written that we are not going to publish or produce anything that you don't approve, that you don't review and approve. And when you approve it, it's yours and you take on all liability and all of everything that comes on with it. So those are the two pillars that I would say. And I am open to any of them.
The key thing here is, you want in your contract, what we refer to as indemnification. Whereas if anybody ever comes after you for the work that you did for somebody, for whatever the reason, that your customer who you prepared it for agrees to reimburse you, pay for any of your attorney's fees, if you lose, to pay your damages, that kind of thing, because you want to protect yourself, because you're creating something for someone else. you are creating it based on the information they are giving you. You can't go out and quality control every little piece of information that your customer is giving to you. You'd be working forever to try and second guess and, check, fact check everything you're doing. If you were a reporter, it'd be different, but that's not your job. Your job is to take the information from people who are providing it to you, create content around it, whether it's a story, whether it's, a video script, podcast script, whatever it is, and then you need to make sure that you're protected in the event the information that you've been given is wrong. So it's like, all right, I'm going to paint your house with the paint you gave me, but if it turns out to be the wrong color, that's on you, not on me. Yeah. My painting job is perfect. And that, I think, is something that you need to, that I think it's great that you're protecting yourself in that respect, because I don't want to see you get screwed over.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think when you're in the world of creating content, especially for other people, there's a lot of that, right? It's like a lot of liability and a lot of, I've even, which I'd be curious to get your opinion on, but there's a lot of agencies that, for example, if they're writing your blogs, they won't post it to your website for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, but we do. Yeah. So because we want to give that turnkey, like, you hire us, we're going to take your ideas and make it a turnkey thing where you don't have to do anything. We're just going to create the content. So I wonder if that's just like a preference thing, or if they're doing that for a liability reason of not wanting to post it on their website.
You know what? I haven't really dug into that. I am always cautious about giving people access to, my platforms for things.
Sure.
I keep everything that I do from a social media standpoint my own, because I've seen and been involved in horror stories where my clients hire a web design company, and the web design company says, great, to save you some money, we'll host it here, and they do it, and they kind of have their own little turnkey, operation in terms of their content and SEO and everything like that. And then when you decide, great, I no longer want to use you, they go, okay, great, see you, goodbye. And then you go, well, yeah, I'd like my website. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we're not going to give it to you. Yeah. Or you don't pay them, or you're late on payment or something like that. And they hold all of your content hostage. Yeah. And then I get called in, and I have to write mean letters to people, and I have to say, we want our stuff back. And, of course, I'm always checking the contract first. I'm always like, all right, let's go back and let's see exactly what was agreed to at the beginning, because you may be screwed. And a lot of these times, some of these, marketing people or these development people, they will do that. And, if they have like a unique domain name, denverbusinesslawyer.com, and that could be any Denver business lawyer. If it ain't Andy Conagoya, it could be one of my competitors. Who the hell knows? And that becomes tough for me, because now everything that we've created on that platform either goes to be somebody else's, or I lose it. And I got to start over. And that's incredibly, incredibly frustrating. And you lose all that momentum. So, like, for me, it's like I maintain everything myself. I am the owner and the operator of my website, of every social media platform I have. I create my own brand. Now, if I were to bring you on and do it, I'd probably have you post things on my blog as well. It's easy. It's one less thing I have to do. And there is, an incredible amount of value for someone like me having that turnkey process. Because if I hire you and I'm like, listen, create 2 blog posts a month for me, here are the topics I'd like to cover over the next 3 months, boom, there you go. You write them, you post them. Hey, Andy, we posted it. And I'm like, great. I don't have to care about it. And it's up there, and it's a new piece of content, and hopefully people are reviewing it and looking at it. If I see issues, we make some changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to do it, at least from a customer standpoint. It's good, I think, from your standpoint that you're doing that, because I think those who don't do that, I think they're kind of fly-by-nighty, and they're not very trustworthy. And I hate getting involved in those. That and, like, those contract after contract where you're going to hire us for a year, and if you don't use us, you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And you got to pay. I'm fighting over those, like Google AdWords and content creation people really just kind of drive me nuts.
Yeah. Honestly, it's frustrating. I think there's, for Nobler and our whole team, it's very much, we're in the human business. We're not in the marketing business. It's, you got to operate on the ethical standpoint that would you want that to happen to you? And would you want your website to be held hostage if signed on with somebody and they create your website and you're working with them, and then you aren't even aware that at the end of it you can't take it with you?
It happens. It happens to lawyers. So I told you that I represent a lawyer marketing company, and they run a podcast too. they were telling horror stories of exactly what I'm talking about, where lawyers hire marketing companies, and these marketing companies create their websites and everything like that, and the lawyers don't know. I mean, lawyers want to be lawyers. They don't want to be marketers.
Sure.
I'm fortunate where I kind of like spend a lot of time in both spaces, and it's fun for me. But these lawyers are making these deals, and the next thing you know, they're screwed because they either cancel the contract, something comes up, and now everything that they had worked on is gone.
I can't even imagine that. That would be horrible.
No, it sucks. And I also think from just a pure branding standpoint, you want to be able to control your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm giving all of my branding power to somebody else to manage, well, then I could end up being anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer unique to me.
Yeah. I feel like that's what makes our team so different. We're definitely a leader in keeping honest and ethical practices, because it's literally, we want to help people. We want to help people build their brand and tell their story. And you don't do that by screwing them over. You don't do that by like trying to be sneaky. You have to keep transparency. You know, it's hard to wrap your head around, but I was just talking about this with our web developer too. And he was telling me about this, about how a lot of people in that space will keep control of the hosting, keep control of, you know, XYZ, so that they kind of can hold the client hostage and guarantee that they could line their pockets for a little bit longer than they might otherwise. And that just is not worth it. I mean, would you rather have happy customers or, you know, a few extra dollars in the bank? Because at the end of the day, if your customers get pissed at you, they're going to have not very good things to say about you. And word of mouth is everything. Your reputation is everything.
It is. Credibility, I think, is really the key component there. And I kind of have this philosophy, and that is, I'm going to have clients come and go in my business. I'm going to have people who work for me come and go in my business. I always want to leave the impression that, you know, the work that somebody did for me, or the client that I was doing work for, if they went somewhere else later on, and that next person says, "Who was your lawyer before?" and they go, "Andy Contaguglia," that they go, "Andy Contaguglia's got his shit together. He does a good job. I know you are in good hands. It's great that you're with me now, but I know that things are good up to this point." And I think that if you can leave people a little bit better than they were when they first started with you, even if they're not with you any longer, the hope would be that your reputation sort of lives on through them. They will become, you know, even if things ended badly, you know, you want an opportunity where they're going to say, "Listen, I know that they did a quality job, and I know that you were in good hands during that time." I think that's an important component of all of this. And I agree with you. Some people get really mad, like, "Oh, you're no longer hiring me," or "You don't want to use me anymore." And I think people just need to get over that. I mean, we're in the service industry. Not everybody's going to want our services. There are going to be times that we're going to get fired. There are going to be times that people can't afford us. There are going to be times where we don't want to work with these people anymore. I mean, it's all of that's there. And we need to just respect that, you know, the next step or what is the legacy going to be. That is an important thing. God, I had another client where same kind of thing. She hired a social media manager, and, you know, luckily, the contract I created for my client in hiring this person said, "Everything you create is mine. Mm-hmm. Everything you do is mine. You know, everything in that space." And then when she fired her, she like went and held everything hostage. Everything. The website, her Facebook pages. She created, you know, my client had created a huge following on Facebook. She held that hostage. She held Instagram hostage, everything. And luckily we had this whole, you know, we had everything in the contract. And I told my client, I said, "Write her a cease and desist. Cite this paragraph of your contract, and let's see what happens." So that was just like a week ago. So I don't have like the what happened yet. So I'm waiting to kind of see what happened. But yeah, this person was just like, "Well, nobody's going to want to work with her again." Yeah. You know, the word's going to get around that this woman comes in and just holds your shit hostage, and then boom, you're gone.
Yeah, that's not.
I don't think that's a good way of doing business.
Sorry
it is.
To say it. You got to operate in an abundance mindset.
There you go. There you go. It sounds like somebody who has a business coach working with them in their life.
Right?
All right, so here we are, it's the end of 2023, we're in the holiday season. What does 2024 look like for you and your business?
Yeah, I am actually very excited for 2024. We have a lot of plans about AI and actually launching our own platform to bring book writing to people who want to create their legacy but don't have the resources to pour into a formal ghostwriting project. So I'm really excited about that. But then beyond that, it's how can we educate more people on the ever-evolving landscape of content creation? Because it is moving so quickly. What it is today is going to be so different next month than the month after. So I think that's a lot of our 2024 is getting the word out about how we operate, what we do, educating people on what they can do to help themselves position themselves as credible thought leaders, and then rolling out some exciting projects that'll hopefully help people take off.
Well, what do you see, or what do you envision in terms of like legal issues in your industry as a whole, and what's going to be changing? What are you worried about?
Yeah.
What are you excited about? And how do you think you're going to navigate that besides using a really good lawyer like me?
Yeah. Well, other than using a really good lawyer like you, I think there's a lot around AI because I get so excited to talk about it. You probably saw me kind of like sit up a little straighter to talk about it because it's so exciting, but it's also a little intimidating. I think for anybody who's in an industry who is being impacted by AI, you can either be afraid of it or you can embrace it. And I think that's what's going to be it's kind of you're sitting on the wall and you're either going to go forward or backward. So that's why it's such a big piece for us in 2024 and figuring out ways that we can incorporate it a little bit better, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a time where people are only going to use AI to write a book and create content. So I think that's something that I was worried about until I kind of stepped into, we're at the forefront of that. So I think that's the big thing that gets me nervous and excited all in one. It's the unknown that AI will bring. But I encourage everyone to just get on it, because it really is the next 12 to 18 months. I mean, this is our window. We're at the forefront of this massive evolution of how our industries are going to operate. And either we step into that and lean into it and incorporate it into our own work, or we just kind of get steamrolled. So the choice is ours.
Well, this has been great. We've been at this for quite some time, and it's great. We learned about how you got into this business sort of accidentally through doing work for your dad. We talked about issues with employees and independent contractors. We talked about issues with copywriting and AI and client relationships and relationships with the people who work with you. It's been great. I really appreciate you being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And if I could do one more plug, because there is actually one thing I didn't mention about 2024 that is probably one of the more exciting things.
Of course.
So we're founding a nonprofit. We're launching in January. It's called Shield Our Schools, and it's essentially fundraising to help improve school security for schools who need it, so that they can keep their own budget and their own resources for what it should go to, which is academic enrichment. So that is something that we're really excited to roll out in January, and I encourage everybody to go check it out at shieldourschools.org.
Is that something that you started on your own, or that you're teaming up with somebody for?
Yeah, so my husband and I are launching it, and we have an amazing board who, just one person that comes to mind is Nick Cavuto, whose kids go to the Covenant in Nashville, the school that had the incident. I don't remember. I think it was a year ago. He has gotten on many stages in many media outlets talking about this exact thing of how simple measures of adding window film on the windows, bullet-resistant window film, could have slowed the shooter down from getting into the school within 2 minutes to getting into the school in 15 minutes, if they even were able to get into the school at that point. So it's these minor things that if that school had $30,000 to put on a window, bullet-resistant window film, that could have mitigated the impact of what happened there. I'll leave it with this. There's also some locking mechanism issues. A lot of our schools have the same locking mechanisms that they had in the 70s or 80s, and they don't have the funds to pour into it. I mean, 5B was I think it was a mill levy to help with this exact thing,
right,
but it didn't get passed. So it's like,
right,
there's a need for this, and there's a lot of funds on the federal level that are available to schools as well, but the grant writing process is so complicated and complex that schools aren't using it, and they're not not tapping into it. So it's like, how can we simplify that process, pour into our schools, invest in our schools, and just, one, bring peace of mind to students, to faculty, but two, mitigate the impact of, what everybody doesn't even want to think about because it's so horrible.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I'm so glad that you guys are on that adventure together, and I wish you nothing but huge amounts of success in that. So I'm excited to see where that goes over the next year or so. All right, so before we sign off, if you could give a few little pieces of advice to an aspiring media entrepreneur, someone who is out there listening to this podcast going, I want to start a content creation company, what kind of advice would you give that person as they are walking into this world?
I would tell them to lean into what makes them different and what makes them unique, because that is essentially, whether it's in the media world or any other industry or anybody trying to build their brand, you have to lean into what makes you you, because that's going to be relatable, but it's also going to make you different from everybody else that's trying to do it. That would be number one. And number two is, my coach told me this, is say yes until it makes sense to say no. I started in events, and the opportunity came to manage social media and pour into marketing. And I just said yes, even though it made me a little spooked to do it, but it's evolved into being our core competency now. So it's, even if you get freaked out, just say yes and do it, and you will figure it out as you go. The next step kind of shows itself to you as long as you keep on moving.
Awesome. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Go forward. Awesome. So where can people find you if they want to look you up, or if they want to reach out to you, or if they want to watch some of the amazing content that you create?
I'd say follow me on Instagram. It's at Paresa BN. Paresa Big Hash Noble. So Paresa BN on Instagram, and then on LinkedIn as well. I put a lot of content out on LinkedIn. And you can always just email me directly to Paresa@nobleair.com. And then of course, nobleair.com. That's our homepage. So
that's NOBLEER.com.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good seeing you. It's awesome to see you. And I hope you have nothing but an amazing holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Skip the Legal podcast. I'm your host, Andy Contaguglia. I hope you enjoyed our time together and this great opportunity to peek behind the business door and examine the legal lessons in business. If you're keen to hear how these lessons can be applied in the real world, well, join us next week for another episode where you can listen in to another business success story. As always, you can head over to contaguglia.com/podcast to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at AJCESQ. Thanks again. This is Andy Contaguglia reminding you to don't skip the legal. Good luck. The legal information contained in this podcast is intended for general informational and entertainment purposes only. It should only be used as a starting point for addressing your specific legal issue. The legal information I talk about does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and me. This podcast is not a substitute for an in-person or telephonic consultation with a lawyer who is licensed to practice in your jurisdiction about your specific legal issue, and you should not rely on this legal information for those purposes. You understand that questions and answers or other information contained in this podcast are not confidential and are not subject to attorney-client privilege. I am not providing you a legal service. Every legal case is different, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Please consult your own attorney.